The Constitution of India has several unique features that set it apart from other constitutions in the world. These features include lengthy Constitution. The Constitution of India is one of the longest in the world with 448 articles and 12 schedules. Preamble. The Constitution of India has a preamble which enshrines the ideals and objectives of the Constitution. Federal system with unitary bias. The Indian Constitution enshrines federalism, where the powers are divided between the center and the states. However, in times of emergency or crisis, the Indian Union can become more centralized. Fundamental rights. The Constitution of India guarantees fundamental rights to every citizen, including the right to freedom of speech and expression, the right to equality, and the right against exploitation. Directive principles of state policy. The Constitution also enshrines directive principles of state policy, which are guidelines for the government to establish an egalitarian society. Independent judiciary. The Indian Constitution provides for an independent judiciary that is separate from the executive and legislature. President as a ceremonial head. The Constitution of India makes the President the head of the state but gives him, her limited powers and makes the Prime Minister the head of the government. Parliamentary form of government. The Indian Constitution follows the parliamentary form of government where the Prime Minister and Cabinet are responsible to the Parliament. Emergency provisions. The Indian Constitution provides for the declaration of emergency in case of external aggression, internal disturbance or armed rebellion. However, it should be noted that many of these unique features have undergone substantial changes due to various amendments. Nevertheless, the Supreme Court has ruled that the basic structure of the Constitution cannot be altered by any amendment. Lengthiest written Constitution. The Constitution of India is the lengthiest written constitution in the world. It is a comprehensive and detailed document that contains a preamble, about 470 articles, divided into 25 parts, and 12 schedules. This is due to various factors, including the vastness of the country and its diversity, the influence of the Government of India Act of 1935, the single constitution for both the centre and the states, and the dominance of legal luminaries in the Constituent Assembly. The Constitution not only lays down the fundamental principles of governance but also contains detailed administrative provisions. It includes matters that are usually left to ordinary legislation or established political conventions in other modern democratic countries. The Constitution covers a wide range of topics, including citizenship, fundamental rights, directive principles of state policy, election laws, distribution of powers between the centre and states, emergency provisions, and much more. The Constitution also provides for the independent judiciary, a parliamentary form of government, and federalism with a unitary bias. It enshrines fundamental rights for every citizen, including the right to equality, freedom of speech and expression, and the right against exploitation. The Constitution of India has undergone several amendments over the years, but its basic structure remains intact thanks to the Supreme Court's ruling in the Kesavananda Bharti case that Parliament cannot alter the Constitution's basic structure. Drawn from various sources. The Constitution of India has borrowed provisions from various other constitutions and laws, including the Government of India Act of 1935. The structural part of the Constitution is largely derived from this act, while the philosophical part, fundamental rights and directive principles, draws inspiration from the American and Irish constitutions, respectively. The political part, cabinet government and executive legislature relations, has been largely drawn from the British Constitution. Other provisions have been taken from the constitutions of Canada, Australia, Germany, USSR, now Russia, France, South Africa, Japan, and more. The Government of India Act of 1935 has had a profound influence on the Constitution of India, with more than half of its provisions being identical to or bearing a close resemblance to the Act. The federal scheme, judiciary, governors, emergency powers, public service commissions, and many administrative details are also drawn from this Act. The Constitution of India can thus be seen as a culmination of various constitutional and legislative provisions from around the world, adapted to the unique needs and aspirations of the Indian people. Blend of rigidity and flexibility. The Constitution of India is a blend of both rigidity and flexibility. A rigid constitution requires a special procedure for amendment, while a flexible constitution can be amended in the same manner as ordinary laws. India's constitution is neither fully rigid nor flexible. Article 368 provides for two types of amendments. A. Some provisions can be amended by a special majority of the parliament, which means a two-third majority of the members of each house present and voting, and a majority of the total membership of each house. B. Some other provisions can be amended by a special majority of the parliament and with the ratification by half of the total states. However, some provisions of the constitution can be amended by a simple majority of the parliament in the manner of ordinary legislative process. These amendments do not come under Article 368 and are easier to make than those under A and B. This blend of rigidity and flexibility gives the Constitution of India the ability to adapt to changing circumstances while also protecting its fundamental principles and structure. It strikes a balance between ensuring stability and allowing for necessary changes. This system of amendment has helped the Constitution of India endure for over 70 years, while also allowing for necessary changes to be made for the betterment of Indian society. Federal system with unitary bias. The Constitution of India establishes a federal system of government, with all the usual features of a federation such as a written constitution, division of powers, independent judiciary and bicameralism. However, it also contains many unitary or non-federal features, such as a strong central government, single constitution, single citizenship, flexibility of constitution, integrated judiciary, appointment of state governors by the centre, all India services, emergency provisions, and more. The Constitution does not use the term federation, but instead describes India as a union of states. This implies that the federation is not the result of an agreement by the states, and no state has the right to secede from the federation. The Indian Constitution has been described in various ways, including federal in form but unitary in spirit, quasi-federal, bargaining federalism, cooperative federalism, and federation with a centralizing tendency. These descriptions reflect the unique nature of the Indian federal system, which combines elements of both federal and unitary systems of government. Overall, the Indian federal system with unitary bias strikes a balance between the need for a strong central government and the desire for regional autonomy and self-governance. The Constitution provides for a powerful center while also allowing for some degree of state autonomy within the larger framework of the Union of States. Parliamentary form of government. The Constitution of India has adopted the British parliamentary system of government, which is also known as the Westminster model of government. This system is based on cooperation and coordination between the legislative and executive organs, unlike the American presidential system that is based on the doctrine of separation of powers between the two organs. The parliamentary system in India is characterized by the presence of both nominal and real executives, majority party rule, collective responsibility of the executive to the legislature, membership of the ministers in the legislature, leadership of the prime minister or chief minister, and dissolution of the lower house, Lok Sabha or assembly. While the Indian parliamentary system is largely based on the British pattern, there are some fundamental differences. For example, the Indian Parliament is not a sovereign body like the British Parliament, and the Indian state has an elected head, republic, while the British state has a hereditary head, monarchy. In a parliamentary system, whether in India or Britain, the role of the Prime Minister is significant and crucial, and political scientists sometimes refer to it as a prime ministerial government. Overall, the parliamentary form of government in India provides for a responsible and accountable executive that is answerable to the legislature, ensuring that the government functions in the best interests of the people. Synthesis of parliamentary sovereignty and judicial supremacy. The principle of parliamentary sovereignty is associated with the British Parliament, while the principle of judicial supremacy is associated with the American Supreme Court. However, in India, the scope of the judicial review power of the Supreme Court is narrower compared to that of the American Supreme Court. This is because the Indian Constitution provides for procedure established by law, rather than due process of law, as mentioned in the American Constitution, Article 21. Therefore, the framers of the Indian Constitution have sought to create a proper synthesis between the British principle of parliamentary sovereignty and the American principle of judicial supremacy. The Supreme Court has the power of judicial review and can declare parliamentary laws unconstitutional. At the same time, the Parliament has the power to amend the Constitution through its constituent power. This balance between the Parliament and the Supreme Court ensures that neither institution becomes too powerful, and both work in harmony to uphold the principles of the Constitution while ensuring the welfare of the people. Integrated and independent judiciary. The Indian Constitution establishes an integrated and independent judicial system that is responsible for enforcing both central and state laws. This system includes a hierarchy of courts, with the Supreme Court standing at the top and high courts at the state level. Below the high courts are subordinate courts like district courts and other lower courts. The Supreme Court is a federal court, serves as the highest court of appeal, and is responsible for upholding fundamental rights and guarding the Constitution. The Constitution has made various provisions to ensure the independence and impartiality of the judiciary, including security of tenure for judges, fixed service conditions for judges, all expenses of the Supreme Court charged on the Consolidated Fund of India, a ban on discussions on the conduct of judges in the legislature, prohibition from practicing law after retirement, power to punish for its contempt vested in the Supreme Court, separation of the judiciary from the executive, and more. Overall, the Indian judicial system is designed to operate independently of the executive branch of government and is responsible for upholding the rule of law and protecting the rights of the citizens. It ensures that no individual or group can act above the law and that justice is done fairly and equally for all. Fundamental rights. The Indian Constitution guarantees 6 fundamental rights to all citizens under Part 3. A. Right to equality, Articles 14 to 18. B. Right to freedom, Articles 19 to 22. C. Right against exploitation, Articles 23 to 24. D. Right to freedom of religion, Articles 25 to 28. A. Cultural and educational rights, Articles 29 to 30, and F. Right to constitutional remedies, Article 32. These fundamental rights promote the idea of political democracy, limit the power of the executive branch, and protect citizens from arbitrary laws. They can be enforced by the courts through writs such as habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari, and quo warranto. However, these fundamental rights are not absolute and subject to reasonable restrictions. The Parliament can curtail or repeal them through a Constitutional Amendment Act, and they can be suspended during a national emergency except for the rights guaranteed by Articles 20 and 21. The fundamental rights are an essential part of India's constitution and play a crucial role in ensuring that the government works for the welfare of all citizens and is accountable to them. While they are not absolute and can be restricted, they provide a framework that supports democracy and protects the basic rights of the Indian people. Directive Principles of State Policy. The directive principles of state policy are a unique and novel feature of the Indian Constitution. They are listed in Part 4 of the Constitution and can be classified into 3 categories: socialistic, Gandhian, and liberal intellectual. The directive principles aim to promote social and economic democracy and establish a welfare state in India. Unlike fundamental rights, the directive principles are not enforceable in court for their violation. However, the Constitution declares that these principles are fundamental in the governance of the country, and it is the duty of the state to apply them when making laws. This obligation imposes a moral duty on state authorities, but the real force behind them is political, that is, public opinion. The Supreme Court has held that the Indian Constitution is based on a balance between fundamental rights and the directive principles. Both are crucial for the development of the country and promote the welfare of its citizens. Overall, the directive principles of state policy serve as a guide for the government and play a significant role in promoting the welfare of the people of India. They are a testament to the nation's commitment to social and economic democracy and ensure that the government is accountable for the betterment of all citizens. Fundamental duties. The fundamental duties of citizens were added to the Indian Constitution during the internal emergency of 1975-77, through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976, based on the recommendations of the Swaran Singh Committee. The 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002 added one more fundamental duty to the list. Part 4A of the Constitution contains only one article, Article 51A, that lists 11 fundamental duties, including respecting the Constitution, national flag, and national anthem, protecting the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of the country, promoting the spirit of common brotherhood among all people, and preserving the rich heritage of the composite culture of India. The fundamental duties remind citizens that while they have the right to enjoy their privileges, they also have a responsibility to their country, society, and fellow citizens. However, these duties are non-justiciable, much like the directive principles of state policy. The inclusion of fundamental duties in the Indian Constitution demonstrates the importance of balancing rights and responsibilities, ensuring that citizens use their rights in a responsible and ethical manner. It highlights the fact that individuals have an obligation towards their country and society, promoting the continued welfare and advancement of all citizens. A secular state. The Indian Constitution establishes a secular state that does not uphold any particular religion as the official religion of the Indian state. This is evident from various provisions in the Constitution, including a. The term secular was added to the preamble by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. B. The preamble guarantees to all citizens of India liberty of belief, faith and worship. C. The state shall not deny any person equality before the law or equal protection of the laws, Article 14. D. The state shall not discriminate against any citizen on the grounds of religion, Article 15. A. Equality of opportunity for all citizens in matters of public employment, Article 16. Furthermore, the Constitution ensures that all individuals are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right to freely practice and propagate any religion, Article 25. Every religious denomination or any of its sections shall have the right to manage its religious affairs, Article 26. Additionally, no person shall be compelled to pay any taxes for the promotion of a particular religion, Article 27, and religious instruction shall not be provided in any educational institution maintained by the state, Article 28. The Constitution also provides for the conservation of distinct languages, scripts, and cultures, Article 29, and offers protection for minorities to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice, Article 30. The state shall endeavor to secure a uniform civil code for all citizens, Article 44. Unlike the Western concept of secularism, which implies complete separation between religion and state, the Indian Constitution embodies the positive concept of secularism. This means that all religions are equally respected and protected. The Constitution has abolished the old system of communal representation, which reserved seats in the legislature based on religion. Instead, it provides for temporary reservation of seats for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes to ensure their adequate representation in the government. Universal adult franchise. The Indian Constitution bases elections to the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies on the principle of universal adult franchise. This means that every citizen above the age of 18 has the right to vote without discrimination of caste, race, religion, sex, literacy, wealth, and so on. The Constitution makers introduced this bold experiment, knowing the vast size and population of the country, high levels of poverty, social inequality, and overwhelming illiteracy. The introduction of universal adult franchise is a significant feature of Indian democracy. It makes democracy more broad-based, enhances the self-respect and prestige of the common people, upholds the principle of equality, enables minorities to protect their interests, and opens up new hopes and opportunities for weaker sections. It allows every citizen to have a voice in the government and ensures that their opinions are taken into account in policy making. The reduction of the voting age from 21 to 18 years in 1989 by the 61st Constitutional Amendment Act of 1988 further expanded the scope of democracy in India. This allowed more young people to participate in the democratic process and have a say in the future of the country. Overall, universal adult franchise plays a critical role in ensuring that Indian democracy remains vibrant and representative. It allows for fair and inclusive elections, promotes political and social equality, and ensures that all citizens have a stake in the future of the country. Single citizenship. The Indian Constitution provides for a single citizenship, meaning that every citizen of India enjoys the same political and civil rights, regardless of the state they belong to. However, in countries like the USA, each person is both a citizen of the country and the particular state they belong to, enjoying dual sets of rights conferred by both national and state governments. In India, the provision for single citizenship and uniform rights aims to prevent discrimination against citizens based on their state, religion, caste, or any other factor. However, despite these constitutional provisions, India has been plagued by communal riots, class conflicts, caste wars, linguistic clashes, and ethnic disputes. These issues suggest that the goal of building a united and integrated Indian nation has not been fully realized. To achieve this goal, India must ensure that all citizens feel equally represented and protected by the state. This involves addressing the root causes of communal tensions, promoting economic and social equality, and actively working towards creating a society free of discrimination and prejudice. By embracing diversity and fostering a sense of national unity, India can work towards a brighter and more prosperous future for all its citizens. Independent bodies. The Indian Constitution establishes certain independent bodies that are essential to the democratic system of government in India. These independent bodies include a. The Election Commission, which ensures free and fair elections to the Parliament, state legislatures, and the offices of the President and Vice President of India. b. The Controller and Auditor General of India, who audits the accounts of the central and state governments, acts as the guardian of the public purse, and comments on the legality and propriety of government expenditure. c. The Union Public Service Commission, which conducts examinations for recruitment to all India services and higher central services, and advises the President on disciplinary matters. d. The State Public Service Commission, which conducts examinations for recruitment to state services and advises the Governor on disciplinary matters. The Constitution ensures the independence of these bodies through various provisions such as security of tenure, fixed service conditions, and expenses being charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. These bodies play an essential role in maintaining the integrity of the country's democratic system. By ensuring that these institutions are free from any undue influence or pressure, the Constitution ensures that they are able to carry out their functions effectively, impartially, and efficiently. The independence of these bodies is crucial in upholding the democratic values of the country, ensuring the fair and transparent functioning of the government, and promoting the welfare of all citizens. Emergency provisions. The Indian Constitution contains emergency provisions that enable the President to effectively deal with any extraordinary situation that could arise. The reason for including these provisions is to safeguard the country's sovereignty, unity, integrity, security, democratic political system, and the Constitution. The Constitution envisages three types of emergencies, including a national emergency due to war, external aggression, or armed rebellion, Article 352, state emergency or President's rule due to the failure of the constitutional machinery in states, Article 356, or failure to comply with the directions of the Centre, Article 365, and financial emergency due to a threat to the financial stability or credit of India, Article 360. During an emergency, the central government receives all power, and the states come under the total control of the centre. This can transform the federal structure into a unitary one without a formal amendment of the Constitution. This transformation of the political system from federal during normal times to unitary during emergencies is a unique feature of the Indian Constitution. While these emergency provisions offer a way to deal with extraordinary situations, they can also result in a concentration of power and potentially lead to abuses of authority. It remains crucial to ensure that these provisions are used appropriately and only in times of absolute necessity, to maintain the integrity of the Indian democratic system. Three-tier government. The Indian Constitution initially provided for a dual polity with provisions for the organization and powers of both the centre and states. However, the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts, passed in 1992, added a third tier of government, which is not found in any other constitution in the world. The 73rd Amendment Act of 1992 gives constitutional recognition to rural local governments, panchayats, by adding a new Part 9 and a new Schedule 11 to the Constitution. Similarly, the 74th Amendment Act of 1992 gives constitutional recognition to urban local governments, municipalities, by adding a new Part 9A and a new Schedule 12 to the Constitution. These amendments establish a democratic system at the grassroots level, allowing citizens to participate directly in local government decisions. They also ensure that local governments have constitutional recognition and support, giving them greater autonomy and power to address local issues and problems. The addition of these amendments gives greater power and autonomy to the people at the grassroots level, with the objective of promoting participatory democracy, ensuring economic and social justice, and improving the overall quality of life in the country. Overall, the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts are an important step towards building a more democratic and participatory form of governance, giving more power and voice to ordinary citizens at the local level. Cooperative societies. The 97th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2011 granted constitutional status and protection to cooperative societies, making three significant changes to the Constitution. First, it made the right to form cooperative societies a fundamental right under Article 19 of the Constitution. This means that citizens have the right to freely form cooperative societies without any government interference. Second, it introduced a new directive principle of state policy under Article 43b, which focuses on the promotion of cooperative societies. This directive aims to encourage the formation and growth of cooperative societies, particularly in rural areas, as a means of promoting economic and social development. Third, the amendment added a new Part 9b to the Constitution, entitled The Cooperative Societies, consisting of Articles 243ZH to 243ZT. This part lays down several provisions to ensure that cooperative societies function in a democratic, professional, autonomous, and economically sound manner. It also empowers Parliament to make appropriate laws for multi-state cooperative societies and empowers state legislatures to make laws for other cooperative societies. The inclusion of cooperative societies as a constitutional entity is a significant step towards promoting the growth and development of these societies. It provides a legal framework that protects the interests of cooperative societies and ensures that they operate in a transparent and accountable manner. By recognizing the importance of cooperative societies in promoting economic and social development, the amendment contributes to building a more equitable and inclusive society.